Alright, for today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to add shading or textures to your meshes. And so there's several ways that you can do this. I'm going to show off two of them, but there's more things that you can do, like exporting it into apps like Procreate. Alright, so starting out, you're going to want to select your mesh that you want to add shading to, and then you're going to press the plus so you can add a new material, and then go to the base color and turn it all the way down. We're going to turn the roughness down to about 0.2 to make it so that it has a little bit of shine to it. Next, you're going to go to the UV editing tab at the top, and then you're going to press new. And this is going to make it so that you're going to have a new, canvas to paint on. Make sure you name it something that you can easily remember. For the spikes, I'm going to just call it spikes. And I'm going to turn up the pixels a bit more so that I can give it more detail. Next, you're going to want to press A so that you can select all the vertices, and then you're going to go to UV and then go to unwrap minimum stretch. You may get this little error message at the bottom. To fix this, you just go to the top cone because it's so far away from the rest of the vertices on the other cones. So you just select the circle that's on the bottom of it, and you do that by pressing Alt and then pressing the circle. And then what you're going to do next is you're going to go to Edge, and then you're going to want to do Mark Seam. And then if you do that process again of unwrapping it, it should work. This makes it so that everything can fit on one page a little bit easier, and you don't have to do it manually. Next, go back to the Layout tab at the top, and then you're going to want to press Shift A, and you're going to add an image texture. Connect the color to the base color of the principled BSDF. As your image, you're going to want to choose the one that has the same name that you had for the UV editor. Next, go to the Texture Paint tab at the top, and this is where it's going to show everything that you're able to paint on. It might show up with the black texture at first, but you can just erase all of it. If you go onto the left side and start painting, you'll be able to see that it's painting on the right side on the 3D model. Try to find the tips of the cones and paint them whatever color you want. If you're going off of the reference, then just have it to the side so that it's easy to go off of. If you are going off of the reference, it's going to look something like this on the screen here. Next, go back to the Shader tab and then press Shift A and type in Mix Color. If you click on the wire in between, it'll automatically input it for you, but you're actually going to want to have it like the shading set up on the screen. For the RGB node, you just type in RGB and it should be an input node. Next, we're going to go back to the texture paint, and we can actually turn the strength down on this brush, and it makes it have a lower opacity, which makes it easier to look like it has like a blended texture. It won't appear that way on the right, but that's because it's like a solid color. But if you go back to the layout, you can see it like right here. If you copied the shading setup from the shading tab that I had on screen, you'll notice that the mix node had a multiply layer, and that made all the colors a bit like darker. Especially the blue one, but I'll show you how to fix the blue color later. The other colors should work fine for this model. The reason we're doing this is because Blender doesn't have a built-in layering system. There are add-ons that you can probably get, but I'm not going to be showing that in this video. Now I'm just going to show you guys on the screen how I'm painting this thing. It's not very neat or anything, because if you look at the reference image, it's not exactly the most clean looking painting. It's kind of splotchy and messy, but that's the look that we're going for. Now your final product should look something like this. Next, we're going to go back to the Texture Paint tab and add another layer. This is going to be our secondary spikes, and it's going to be on top of the blue one only because the other colors are perfectly fine. If you go to Image and then Copy, you can actually come over here and make a new image and just paste it right there. We're going to erase all the other colors because we only need the blue right now. If you see that little asterisk at the top, that means that you need to save the image onto your computer, just so that it has somewhere to locate the file. Next, we're going to come back to our layout and our shader editor, and then we're going to just duplicate the image texture node and the mix shader node, because those are what we're going to be using for the second layer. I'm going to try my best to explain the shader nodes. The RGB one is self-explanatory. It's just a very specific color that's on the RGB spectrum. The mix shader makes it so that it takes two different textures and it combines them. The fact slider basically just tells Blender, hey, this texture is more important, so use this one more than the other one. Plugging the alpha from the image texture into the factor makes it so that it works automatically and you don't have to worry about how much of a hierarchy there is. The mode on the mix shader just makes it so that the color is applied in a very specific way. Last time we used the multiply mode, and that makes it so that all the colors appear darker on the texture that's beneath it. For this one, we're going to apply the add one because it adds stuff on top of it and makes it brighter. This is only going to be used for the blue texture, but the other ones are going to stay on the multiply one. Using the mix shader, it makes it so that those textures are combined. Next up, we're going to do the eyes. We're going to add a new material to it, and I'm going to try to make it a lot like the actual model by rotating it in edit mode. Doing this makes it so that the pupils are a lot easier to edit since it's already a circular shape. We can select this inner circle right here and then go and press plus on the right side and then new. And then this will give it a new material, so it'll be different from the other part. It'll be different from the other part of the mesh. We're going to turn the roughness down to 0.2 again, just to make it so that it has a little more of a glossy look. And then we're going to put our reference and line up against it so that it's easier to look off at. Then we're going to put our reference against the model so that it's easier to reference. I'm just going to edit this part right here just to make it so that everything lines up with the model behind it. If you notice, I'm pressing H and then Control Z to undo the hide. I'm just hiding and unhiding it over and over so that I can see it better. You might want to slow part of this down, but if you want to add a new material to certain faces, you just go into edit mode and select whichever faces you need, and then you go to the material tab on the right and press plus, and then you press the assign button. This will make it so that you can apply whichever color or material you want to a specific item. Once you've created it, select the yellow eyeball material and then go to the UV editing tab. Go to new image and name it whatever you want again, and then go back to the UV editing tab and then go to UV unwrap minimum stretch. Once you go back to the texture paint tab, if there's anything on the texture, just erase it, but now that it's this circle shape, it's a lot easier to work with. It might be a little confusing because the texture might look like inverted. So for me, if I draw in the center right here, it'll wrap around the sides on the right side. As you can see, the texture looks backwards on my image. So to fix this, change the hierarchy on the mix shader, and then your final product should look something like this. And then you can also always go back and just edit a few things. I had to do that because I had to add more red around the sides. Next up, we're going to be doing the green part inside the eyes. You can actually go to your previous eye material and copy and paste it into the green one that you had made earlier. And then once you have that, just change the yellow color and the A factor to a green. Then next you're going to go into the UV editing and select the part that you need for the green eyes. And then you're going to make a new image in the texture paint area. Next you're going to paint your eye part in the texture painting. And then you're going to go back to the layout and select the image that you had just made. Then you're going to go back to the texture paint and then just make it exactly like the image with kind of a little gradient using the low strength on the brush. Then if you use the smudge tool, you can make the little lines that are inside the eye just by pushing it upwards. I'm going to add a little bit of a yellow hue just so that it glows a little better, and then a darker hue around the edge. Alright, we're almost done. Lastly, we're going to select the heart mesh thing, the base of the mask, and then we're going to add a new material. Add in a mixed color shade and connect the result to the base color, and then try to make the B color more of like a dark blue to match the reference image. Change the roughness so that it isn't as shiny, and then next add an image texture and connect the result to the A factor of the mix shader. You can press the new button to create the new image just right in here. And then next you're going to go to the UV editing tab. If If you go to UV and then Smart UV Project, that should project the heart mesh a little better. Next, go to the Texture Paint tab, and then choose the color red and start painting on the inside of the mesh. As you can see, it's not displaying in the right order, so you actually want to change the output of the image texture and change it from the A to the B input of the mix shader. And then it should work after that. Now once you go back to texture painting, you can just remove the black texture that's there by default and then just start making the red markings, and it should appear on the mask. After that, you can select your reference and put it right behind your model just so that you have an easier way to paint things. Once you go back to the texture painting tab, you can hide the original mesh, and then it should just be able to work like this, and you can just paint directly on top of the reference. I'm going to speed this part up just so that it's easier for everybody to follow along with. You can paint it however you'd like, or you can paint it exactly like the reference picture. Now, the painting part might take a bit longer. It can be a very tedious process, but in the end it's going to be very much worth it. There are a bit of tools that help it become an easier process. If you look in the Tools tab, or the brush settings that you can see on my screen, you can see that there's like a color palette below the color wheel. That allows you to add new colors in and just pick it whenever you want. But then there's also a stabilization. If you go into the stroke of the brush, the stroke settings, and you go and click and turn on the stabilization. And the reference shows that the painting has like a bit of like a cracked texture to it. I'm not going to show how to add that this video. That'll probably be in the next one, as well as showing how to do all the fancy lighting and whatnot. Alright, so I know that I said earlier that they don't have layers inside of Blender, but you can actually technically make your own if you duplicate the image and mix shaders and put them down here. And if you create a new image, I'm just going to call mine Mask Details, because this is going to be my top layer that's going to go on top of the other one. You can take the output of the previous mix shader and put it into this new mix shader, and then take the output of that one and put it in the principled BSDF. This basically feeds the previous texture and mixes it with this new one. Now, if you go into the texture paint and then you select the image, you can just erase the black background that it has right here. And then now it allows you to draw in those extra details. If you're just drawing dots, be sure to take off the stabilize stroke option because it makes it so that it's harder to do. I'm going to skip a lot of this last part just to save time, but your final output should look something like what's on the screen. And then also you'll see me editing the back of the eyes. I just don't like the way that it's poking through, so you can just make it smaller in the edit mode. And then there you have it. We're done. Don't forget to save everything, and then I'll continue the next part, which will be texturing and lighting in the next video. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon.